A show of force at sea aimed at China. The U.S., Japan, Australia, and the Philippines held a joint drill in the South China Sea on Sunday. The maritime activity took place days before a summit between the leaders of Japan, U.S., and the Philippines. The meeting will focus on recent incidents in the South China Sea. The waters have become the site of recent showdowns between China and the Philippines. Chinese Coast Guard vessels have rammed into Filipino boats, fired water cannons at them, and aimed lasers at Filipino crew, all to stop the boats from supplying troops stationed on a disputed shoal. Both China and the Philippines claim parts of the South China Sea, though China claims almost all of it. A 2016 international court ruled China's claim invalid. The Philippines accused China of harassing its fishing vessels last Thursday. Take a look at this footage. It shows a large Chinese Coast Guard ship approaching a small Filipino boat. The Philippines said the Chinese Coast Guard crew aboard pretended to man their water cannons and threatened the Filipino fishermen. More than 60% of global maritime trade passes through the South China Sea. Could World War III start in the South China Sea over the maritime territory disputes between China and the Philippines? The U.S. has already gotten involved in the tensions there. What will come next? We spoke with Grant Newsham, retired colonel and senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy, for his take. Grant Newsham, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, I've seen the Chinese regime increasing aggressions around the Philippines. This is despite the Philippines and the U.S. being treaty allies. Now, some are saying this could trigger World War III in the Philippines over the South China Sea. What's your view on this?
Well, it could. Wars start over pretty funny things or small things, and often ways you don't expect. It's certainly an area where the Chinese and our allies, the Filipinos, are coming to blows. Now, this is getting pretty close to meeting the terms for invoking the defense treaty which we have with the Philippines, which requires us to defend the Philippines in the event of an armed attack on the Philippines, Philippine ships, Philippine people, etc.
On that note, you actually do have a recent piece out titled "America's Reputation at Stake in the Philippines and Asia Again." Why is this area so crucial to America?
Well, it's a couple things. And first, I'll just say it's because the Philippines are our ally, and they have a treaty with us, which gives them the promise that we are going to protect them, and also requires them to help defend ourselves. That often isn't recognized, but clearly by the spirit of the treaty, we have an obligation. If you don't defend your friends against an aggressive totalitarian regime that is looking to take our friends' territory and other friends as well in the region, well, who anywhere is going to believe your promises? America, as I said, its reputation is on the line. But also geographically, this is a key strategic terrain. The Philippine territory is right in the South China Sea, which, as we know, is the main trade artery of the whole world. So much of the world trade goes through there.
And when it comes to America's reputation and also power of deterrence, how much of that goes back to the withdrawal from Afghanistan and what the world saw?
A lot. Afghanistan was just really a blow to the stomach to America's reputation. You can't overstate what a disaster that was. Back in 2012, the Chinese did something similar to Philippine territory at a place called Scarborough Shoal, off the west coast of the Philippines. The Americans, the State Department and the administration cut a deal with the Chinese that the Filipinos and the Chinese would simultaneously remove their ships from this territory, or this shoal where they were squared off. The Filipinos removed their ships, the Chinese did not, and they've stayed there ever since. The Philippines were just horrified by what had happened, and they felt let down. Then 4 years later, the Philippines took the Chinese to court, the International Court of Arbitration, and the Philippines won that case overwhelmingly. The Chinese said, "Look, we don't care. This ruling is a scrap of waste paper," and the Americans did nothing. They pretty much ignored it because they didn't want to anger China. So the Obama administration left our ally hanging again.